Okay, Assalamu alaikum. We're talking about the exam now. The exam was an open book exam, and you had all of your material with you for this exam. The exam had 10 questions. The last form were just like a table that you fill in. But the major questions were 6 questions. Okay. The exam was 2 hours long. Okay. And the marks of the exam was variable. There's some stuff with 5 marks, some stuff with 3 marks, and some with 2. The last table of the 4 questions are like a schedule, so they had 4 marks. Okay, so the distribution of marks actually tell you something. Okay, the number of marks tell you which are more important questions for you to answer. So use that as a guide for you in terms of how am I going to manage my answering. So pick up the larger marks first, then the smaller. Unless you are caught by time, you begin with the small marks, finish them out, and then go to the large part. Okay? It's a balance between the weight of each question in marks, and the time allocated for each question. So you have to keep it the balance. If you're short in time, you prioritize the marks. If you're short in marks, you prioritize the time. So make sure that you're managing both in a balance. There's no clear cut. So different strategies for answering that. Okay? I've used codes for you. You find that some people are marked as best. Some of you have got a question that's called best. Best is the best. You had the best answer amongst your colleagues, but it's not the ideal answer. Okay? So some of you have some of your marks as best. Some of you as ideal, and that's an ideal question answer. Okay? Those that are fully ideal. But those that are best within the group, that means nobody had answered it better than you. So it's good to point it out. So I like using those codes in my in the way that I mark my students. As well, when I mark the questions, I mark each question on its own. I go through all of your papers on that question itself. And then I begin marking. So I read all of your answers, and then I go back and mark them. Okay? So I don't mark them immediately. I'm not putting the ideal as my outline for the answering the questions, because this is an open exam question. It's not specific. It's not that I'm looking for 1 or 2 specific answers. It's not like regular exams. In open book exams, it's so wide. The answers are so wide. So it's not. There's no ideal question, ideal answer even. Some questions there is no ideal answer. So you could not pick it up as ideal. So in those cases, the way I mark my questions is that I read all of your answers and then give the highest mark for those that had the best answer. The ideal answer is only 1 or 2 questions that had ideal answers, and specifically those were straight to the point. For example, when I asked you in the glossary, use the glossary to take out the synonyms of a word. And some of you, from that huge list of synonyms, they only took 1 or 2. So whenever you can produce an ideal answer, try to use that in your answer. So I code your answers as best, meaning best amongst your colleagues, or ideal if there is a specific answer to it. Okay, I asked you all to put each question in a page. Okay, in written exams, try to make the head of the paper a question. Don't put 2 questions on the same page. Okay, the empty space down could be used later on if you want to add something. Don't try never to split a question in 2 pages, because the person marking that question could miss it easily. Okay, if the page did not finish you, the page was not enough for you to finish that answer, try to put arrows and keep indicating there's another answer. Continue on the back of the page, and on the back of the page say, this is the continuation of question so and so. So give guidelines. Okay, this is very important for you whenever you're doing a written exam. Try not to divide the answer in multiple pages. Keep on one page. If you use another one, give directions and give detour signs for that. It's essential to have good handwriting. Try to keep margins, okay? Margins, because sometimes you need to add something. Leave margins. Don't write on all of the page. Leave left and right margins if you want to add something to your answer, okay? Try not to scribble on something that is wrong. It's just enough to strike through it. A paper with the scribbles is not clean, okay? It's unprofessional. We're not talking about, we're talking about now you're postgraduate students. So if you have something wrong, don't scribble on it. Try just to strike through it, and I understand that this is omitted or removed, okay? Try to have always a plan, and when you have a plan for the answering. I think this exam highlighted the importance that you have really studied your references, even if it's an open book exam. صح ولا لا؟ صح? Whatever you have read well, and especially if you highlighted, you know how to use the highlighter correctly. You went into that paper direct to the point that you wanted. Anything non-relevant was already not marked. So even if it's an open book exam, you cannot rely on it. That my resources are with me. Searching through those huge amount of resources is time consuming. So even an open book exam needs sufficient reading, okay? The exam questions, some of you were stuck with the longest question, which was the first one. And I intend in my second exam to put the largest question also the first one. I want you to manage the idea of if the answer needs a lot of time, I go collect small marks and then come back to it, okay? A long question is considered a difficult question, okay, that's one. A question that you don't know or not sure about is also considered a difficult question. So leave those, always have the tactic. Leave some space for it. Leave them and go for the small bits and pieces. Because in many times in exams, and I think some of you faced it, you're stuck in the first exam, you could not collect those easy questions. So, some of the very easy questions, you did not take the full mark on it. Even if it was easy. Why? Because you were stuck with the large one. So manage, as I told you, manage the balance between time and difficulty. Difficulty means it's either a long question taking a lot of time, or it's a question that I'm not sure about the answer. I need to look for it. So leave those, keep the sequence of pages, leave a left space for that, then move on to more easier questions. Okay? So do that strategy. Time and mark management, or marks distribution management. Always begin with the easier. As I told you, collect them as fast as possible. Thorough studying, it makes the exam easier, definitely. You put questions on your material. If you were a professor, what are the questions I'm going to put on this? So even producing that role or reproducing that role, that I'm the one putting the question or the exam question, okay? And I'm putting it on this paragraph, it guides your mind even easier from the highlighting, okay? This paragraph answers what are the criteria, for example, of denture borders. This answers the question, what are so-and-so? How do I know so-and-so? So whenever you put questions, that's even better to highlight the chunk of information that you're reading on this page, or this page, or this page. So you use that strategy while you're studying. Put questions by yourself, okay? Using the GPT was a bonus, and as I told you that always GPT, that's definitely a very fixed question in my exams. Why? Because I want you to really master using the GPT. And you will become so professional in using the terminology related to prosthodontics because of the GPT, okay? How to use it, there's a lecture on, I have a recorded lecture on how to use GPT. It was a beginning of a series I was going to do, but maybe with you, maybe I will complete it. It's how to use the GPT professionally, and how to look at it and how to use it professionally. Okay, in terms of the posterior occlusal schemes, I like the answer where she talked about anatomical, semi-anatomical monoplane. and then talked about balanced and unbalanced, but then talked about lingualized and the two types of lingualized. Who was that? Yani, you looked at something that has a classification, and she put all of the types of the classification inside it. Some I think was it you? Can classification classify the occlusal schemes used, posterior occlusal schemes. Okay, I think it was you. No, because he put all of the types of classifications. Because having teeth, anatomical, semi-anatomical, and monoplane, those are the teeth themselves, rather than the balanced, non-balanced, and then in the balance that talks about monoplane and lingualized even. Okay, because monoplane and lingualized are balanced. Okay, so that was so whenever you have a question like that, I mean, you're talking about classification or a big subject and you need a classification. If there is more than one type of classification, put them. Don't leave it as it is. Okay. The Hanau-Quint. Okay, the Hanau-Quint. You either draw the drawing or some of you place the equation. The equation was the best.
Equation was enough?
No, you had to explain it. But having, I mean, if you, whenever you're studying a subject, okay, that has an image summarizing everything, add a little bit of notes and memorize the image. It's easier for you. This is when I work with Crystal. There are some subjects that are so large, but it's summarized in a table. It's summarized in an image. Always use that. Some of you have used the equation, and this is also summarizing the whole quint. Yani all of the paper of the quint is summarized in that equation, because you could simply pick out the relationships easily. This goes inversely or with the so and so. If this increases, this increases. Okay, these are all direct stuff. So once more, when you have big questions that have something summarizing it, use the summarizing bit of it. Okay. So reserved ridges. The case of the reserved lower ridge, there are some solutions you haven't picked up on. I know this has been repeated many times, but don't you know about implants? We talked. They are low reserved. You're going to tackle that in the lecture of denture stability. You're going to tackle them once more in the support. You're going to tackle them once more in the implant retention. You're going to tackle them once more in the occlusion, posterior occlusion. So that same subject is tackled many times. So your answers were so focused, I would know exactly where the reference you went through. And some of you just looked at this reference only, and this reference only. So this subject is so wide that has been covered in each sub-subject in our presentations. So a reserved ridge, you should think widely. Clinical cases, think after, suppose, okay, you have a reference that talked about so and so and so as a solution for that. This reference presented these. Think outside the box and put more solutions. So don't put your experience in. You are now experienced.
So you asked for the references?
Okay, I put those as best answers. Those were bonuses. But the idea is that I'm talking about reserved ridges. Some of you talked about the denture borders. You didn't talk about the occlusion schemes. You took occlusal schemes, huh? So you know what for reserved ridges, what the best occlusal schemes. You talked about them. You didn't talk about the occlusal orientation, high or low. And the idea is that some subjects are so wide. Try to cover them through all of the presentations, not one reference or one lecture. Okay? So now I want from you. Now you have seen your papers, you've seen remarks, and you have gone through the exam. If I were going to repeat the same exam once more, what are you going to do better? Give me one thing for each student. What are you going to change? If it was the same exam, you're going to go through the same experience, what one do you want to change next time?
I did not have time to finish the easy questions.
You didn't have time for easy questions.
I know the answers.
You know the answers and you did not give them enough time.
Time management.
Time management. What else? Yes.
I did not depend on the book.
Don't depend on book, on one reference, because we have multiple references.
And I would write from my own knowledge.
Okay.
Then
This is good. Okay. I by the way, I wanted to tell you about it, but I haven't written it in my notes, so I missed it. Yes. when you answer something, answer it putting in all of your knowledge that you accumulated while studying, and then look for more. Okay? Do it the other side way around. Put your experience in, because you have been studying this subject, for example, for months. Put your experience in, list them, and look for in the references for any other issues you have missed.
This requires too much time.
Too much time to
Yes,
write?
I did it for the second question. I took a lot of time to do this. So
Okay, once more. You said it takes a lot of time. Okay, once more. It's a balance between time and marks. Finish all of the easy stuff, collect all of the easy marks, and then go back and put more. Okay, so you'll have time for that. So more, the most problem was time management.
yes,
Okay, what else? What are you going to change?
لو سؤال هنا كويت
How كنت?
انه بس نحط الدائرة خلص يعني الرسم.
Yes, الدائرة with the arrows, the image with the arrows in are the
أنا
relationships.
حققتها بزيادة
Yeah, we went through and writing more text. So once more, if you're going to write a lot of text, try to find a table or an image to summarize everything. Yes, use images in your answers. That's okay.
We
Okay.
didn't think إنه هذا allowed أصلاً.
لا لا, it's allowed. For me, I always think of outside the box. I want to give everything you can use. And this is how I'm teaching you, to be open-minded and really sink into the information and utilize it correctly so you gain more. I'm engaging you. Okay? Mustafa, what would you do?
دكتور تايم مانجمنت
Time management
أنا
and
بالنسبة لي إنه أعمل explanation أكثر للأجوبة اللي حاطها
so you know more, but you haven't put it in words. That is part of your training that you should be writing while you're studying. You have to have the skill of fast hand, or what they call it, shorthand, they call it. The skill of having the ability to write a lot. If you don't develop that ability, and many times we have seen, even our children when they go to the high school exams, we have cases where a student sleeps in the exam because he has never been through a 2-hour slot with complete quietness, and he has to keep writing in it. Some of them get bored. They know the answers, but they get bored. They have their hand with it's not a stenosis, what is it? A stiff hand, because really they have never written that much. Okay? Or the quietness and the concentration, they begin to become sleepy. So they're not in the mood to write. So all of this goes through the writing more while you're studying before. Keep writing, keep summarizing, keep putting points. Always read and write. Sometimes even like a scribbling of an image. I remember from 5th year, when I was 5th year, that was in 1998. I remember all of the factors leading to angular cheilitis because I'd drawn it, an elderly lady with wrinkles on her mouth, on the side of the mouth, and how she had dry mouth so her tongue was sticking out. I drew like a sketch, a very funny sketch. Until now, I remember all of the points under that issue, reasons for, or let's say predisposing factors for having angular cheilitis. Okay? So drawing something funny, it collects information. So having handwriting, more handwriting. Okay, what else? Manal.
Maybe I would read questions twice, especially the questions that have a lot of parts.
Okay, this is excellent, and we sometimes teach it for our sons, that when you read a question that needs multiple requirements, highlight each requirement on its own, so you don't miss it. Because your vision works different from your mind. Your mind pick a point, I began answering it, and my eyes are still looking at the question, and there are some more requirements for the question.
Because I didn't answer two requirements.
Two requirements, you
Yeah.
didn't see them, because your mind is answering the first one. So have the habit, you read the question fully, and if it has multiple requirements, highlight each requirement on its own. You have to answer this and this, okay? Okay, what else? Minimizing references? No, in postgraduate that is not requested. You should even more expand. You know that when you're studying to the board, you will have a full library as references. No, minimizing references is something you do while you're studying. How? You remember when I told you first lecture that when I'm studying any subject, I begin from this reference. And if it was the best, anything extra I added here. So minimizing references is part of your work, but not me as a supervisor. I should expand my references for you to let you used to the idea that you are a specialist and you should be studying from books. What if I say ophthalmology? How many books do they study? There are no references in board exams. They tell you of no reference. They keep it open. That means every single book published and every paper published on prosthodontics is a part of your requirement. See how wide it is? The idea is management. So this is where review articles come in. You become professional in selecting the textbook that studies this and adding review articles on the subject in between. Okay, I might, if you remind me next lecture, to bring you my file of my textbook, how I divided each chapter into a box file and put all of the pages, I separated the book by the way, and put them in envelopes, okay, and add review articles for each subject above it. So even the book is divided as multiple files. What else going to change, Muhammad?
يكون شوي more comprehensive الإجابات يعني.
More comprehensive in the question. مرة ثانية, put your knowledge first and then add by looking into more book references. What else? Anything else you would like to add? If you're going to repeat this? Okay, so how to make up for this exam? For the mark to add as a bonus, I'm going to add a bonus. I know I've added a question bonus, but now I'm going to do the bonus with the historical articles for the next part. Once we finish presentations, I'm going to present you with all of the historical articles on that subject. And I'm going to ask you for a homework to do on those historical articles. It's more clinical oriented. It will be similar to what we're talking about in the exam. It will be similar, but it will be asking multiple questions with a huge amount of historical articles in front of you. Okay? Anything else?
Homeworks we make already.
No, those I'm leaving them for a while. I'll add them in the final, the homeworks.
Okay.
So I'm going to those homeworks with this new homework. We're going to add them later on. Okay? Because those have an allocated mark already for them. These I'm telling you, this new homework is a bonus. So it's going to add 1 or 2
Bonus
marks
on
on the total mark of your course. Okay? Anything else? So, and do you want from me anything new in the exam? What do you want from me to do in the next exam? For me to adjust?
Maybe the questions, it's gonna be better if they are so precise and clear.
Precise is tackling the first level of knowledge. Define, list, do. I'm tackling higher levels of education.
More time?
More time, yes, fine. More time, fine. In the final, we can't do that because we're not allocated in the lecture time.
Yeah.
You will have an exam time. No problem with me to extend it. I'm fine.
It will be open book too.
Yes, definitely.
فلما يكون في سؤال أكثر من 5 points
That's
No, no.
exactly.
5? No, no,
حتى نحن
no.
عم ندرس دكتور ما بنحفظ.
No, no, you have to. You're a specialist now. You're not a student in your school. No.
At least 5.
I have the freedom to ask for 12 marks or 12 points.
نكتب 6 7 بعدين واحد هيك.
Okay, leave it and do the easy questions.
يعني هذا
But it
أصعب
has
شيء
a
صراحة.
huge-
يعني إنه the requirements are large.
لا أصعب شيء بالامتحان إنه يكون فيه أكثر يعني to list more than 5 things يعني نفس السؤال هذا شيء بيخلي يعني يصير فيه.
Okay, I'll leave that for the big question, the discriminating question. I'll leave it. That means I'm going to bring it to answer. I'm definitely going to bring it to answer.
الدكتور الفاينل بيكون التوبكس تبعت الميد والفاينل ولا بس؟
Mid and final, definitely. But in the terms, in the first ones, I'm clinically oriented. I told you. In the final exam, it will be clinically oriented rather than theoretical. Okay.
Which means the references are not the same.
Not the same, but I'll talk. Always memorize them in terms of what am I going to do clinically.
Okay, not theoretical.
Not theoretical, don't list and just describe or explain. I'm not talking about that. I'm going to bring you a case where you apply this knowledge in it.
So, doctor, for the articles, they are theoretical more than.
They are theoretical more than. So pick up the things that are clinically oriented. Even if they are historical articles, they are still clinically applicable. This is why we teach you them. Okay? So from the articles, pick what am I going to do different in the clinic based on this knowledge. Clinically oriented.
It's out of 50.
It's put on the syllabus. It's on the syllabus software. Anything else? Okay, thank you for the exam and your presentation and the exam, and I really hope for you all the best in your coming experiences. Okay?